I'm Louise Bedford, the host of the Talking Trading podcast. Each week I bring you expert trading tactics and interviews to help you understand what, when, where and how to trade. Now, I want to kick off with a little story. My sister Valerie, who I just adore, years and years ago, she recommended that I read this book, The Plus Factor. When I was 15, it changed my life. I read it cover to cover and I became a good girl, stayed at school, decided to stay at home as well when I was just about to go off the rails. And years later, I got to know the author and I wrote this book with him, Dr. Harry Stanton's Let the Trade Winds Flow. For those of you following along with the audio, if you want to watch the video, come to youtube.com/tradinggame. Now, Harry and I became wonderful friends. My darling Harry passed. I mean, he was much older than I was, but how wonderful to get such a good recommendation from my sister about the book I should read. So when she came to me with her next recommendation, or many recommendations in between, Shine by Shannah Kennedy, I read it cover to cover. And now, amazingly, Shannah Kennedy and I are friends. So I have invited Shannah Kennedy onto the show to share some of her wisdom with us all. Now, I'm going to make sure that I get this right because Shannah has got a list of accolades. Shannah Kennedy from shannahkennedy.com is a renowned strategic life coach from Australia. You've worked with over 100 Olympic and elite athletes, and she's the author of several best-selling books, including Simplify, Structure, Succeed, The Life Plan, Simple Strategies for a Meaningful Life, and of course, Shine, which is the one I just showed you, 20 Secrets to a Happy Life. Shannah, welcome to Talking Trading.
Oh, thanks, Lou. It's so fun to be here and to have a great conversation with you and record that to share tools and tips with everybody out there.
Now, I know we've got a lot in common. In your 20s, you experienced some health setbacks, as did I, and it stopped both of us in our tracks. I want you to talk to everybody listening so that they can hear how that affected you, but also more strategically, how you turned those misfortunes around.
I really was that person who had the work ethic that, go hard or go home. I had no off switch. I actually married my job, and there's probably many listeners out there who think, oh, that could be me. I might have married the job. I didn't know who I was without my job either. So who are you without your job is a very important question for people to ask themselves. But nobody had asked me that. And this is, over 30 years ago. And I was passionate, about, doing the best that I could, raising through the ranks, climbing the corporate ladder. I was in corporate sport. I was around high performance the whole time, people pushing themselves to the limit. So, for me, that was just natural. So that ended up in chronic fatigue and burnout. So I was a Ferrari that got a crack in the engine. And unfortunately, when you do get a crack in the engine, it's there forever when you burn yourself out that badly. And that badly, for me, meant being in bed for a good year. It meant lots of coaching, lots of supplementation, lots of massage, learning to walk around the block. It was totally debilitating, and it stopped my life. But I see it as the gift now because, and it took me a while to see that, of course, but, if something like that happens, you have to stop and reassess your life, don't you? And you have to stop and reevaluate who you are, what's most important to you, and how do you want to feel in the future. And I'm sure you felt exactly the same, is we need to stop sometimes. And if we ignore our body will do it for us. And it will just tear you down and say, I'm going to make you stop because you're not listening to the warning signs. So yeah, for me, it was a slow build coming back, but I really did now build for the last 25 years a life that is high performance without burnout. It is, running businesses, speaking at conferences, writing books, raising a family, exercising daily, but there are very strict boundaries in place.
I had a very similar situation where I worked myself into oblivion and then lost the use of my arms for 3 years. And I think a lot of our listeners do know how that all went and the rehab that I had to go through to be able to make that through. Now, even if you are completely without physical limitation, can you actually just switch off that part that is saying, well, that doesn't apply to me? Because we're about to get into some of the secrets to developing a happy life, a happy trading life, and a happy life. So just switch off that little negative voice that is saying, well, that's what happened with them. And if this is personally appealing to you, realize that some people have managed to speak here from their scars and not their wounds. If it's fresh for you, you may not be in the process of resolving that the way we have. So for goodness sake, give yourself a break. Now, I know in the past, Shannah, we've talked about defining problems. And if you can define your problem very specifically, you're one step closer to the solution. What are some of the blocks that you see that mean people aren't living their best life?
Well, I think they don't want to see the problem to start with. I know with myself, oh, I don't feel well, or, I think I'm saying too many yeses along the way that, we don't protect the asset. And I think a lot of people don't see themselves as the asset. They are the passenger in life. They're not in the driver's seat with two hands on the wheel. And we only get one shot. And it really is up to us to say, how do I want to feel? What results do I want? What kind of high performance living do I want? And am I taking responsibility for that? And identifying the problems in your life and looking at them with a strategic objective, not I'm going to beat myself up, is asking ourselves the question, what can I do now to move forward? Or where do I need support? Or who can help me? Or what is a solution to this that's actually doable for me in the near future, just to take that next step? And I think people get very stuck in their problems. They get stuck energy. Stuck energy is stuck mindset. And we can't make great decisions when we're in that state.
It is so true. And sometimes it can take a little while before we can unblock that. One of the key tools I've used, and that I know you've used as well, to unblock that state is using a morning journal. Now, in the trading world, we've got two types of journals. One is a trading journal, and that's where we record the details of our trades, where our entry is, where our exit is, where our position sizing is. But I like to run a morning journal alongside that as well. So I'd love your thoughts on this. I know this is one of the techniques that you use. Can you tell me more about your morning journal process?
Absolutely. I mean, journaling is a high performance tool at the end of the day. Like, if people want to really sharpen their mind and sharpen their results, start journaling, because when we unpack the brain and we see the written word, we get clarity. We get clarity in our mind. Clarity then creates the pathway for better decision making. We can use it to set our intentions for the day. We can reflect actually on it too and see that success actually leaves clues. That did work for me, that didn't work for me, or that mindset worked for me, or this one didn't. So I think journaling is really about, let's get the words out of the mind that are all jumbled. Let's see them on the page, and then let's just assess that. What does it look like? So a lot of the time people set goals, but they're not written. And when we write them down, we can look at them and say, actually, that's not even my goal. That's someone else's. That's actually not what I really want. It's only when we see the written word that we can become emotional about the goal or about how we want to feel in the day. So morning journaling, I think, is a high performance tool for people to try. Even if they start with a sentence a day, what their intention is, they're already priming their brain for a great day.
I have taken one of the techniques that I use in my trading journal and applied it to my morning journal. So in my trading journal, I say, after I've closed out every trade, what did I do well and what would I do differently? And I use that same strategy in my morning journal. For example, if you are kicking yourself, you're ruminating about a particular thing that's going round and round in your mind. We know rumination is one of the key aspects that can lead to depression later later. So how can we stop rumination? We can stop it in a few different ways, but that what did I do well and what would I do differently next time opens up your mind for a change of behavior for the future. Is that something that you've tried, Shannah, or is this something new that I've introduced to you?
Oh, no. Well, number one, it's fantastic that you explained it so well. But yes, absolutely. I actually use something called the 5 minute journal. And in the morning, it says, what are you grateful for? So you're already starting off on a good foot. And then it says, what would you like to happen today? So you need to start writing out what you're going to do and how you want things to unfold. And then what is your affirmation to support that? So how am I going to train the brain? And then at night time, it says, what 3 amazing things happened today and what could you have done better? So that you're going to bed thinking, yep, tomorrow I'm going to do that better. And that's what you're priming the brain for tomorrow. So they're very powerful journals. And I really encourage people to pick them up and just to start using them as a tool to actually get rid of the stress as well and find the clarity.
A lot of my traders will be familiar with me saying, keep a morning journal, keep a morning journal. So as some advanced tools to be able to use with the morning journal, I'd love your thoughts. One of the things I suggest, if you're running out of things to write, because after the first maybe 10, 15, 20 years, you may run out of things to write about. It might be the first 2 weeks, who knows? But I like, if I've got a few years of journals, which I do on the bookshelf behind me, I go back in time to the journal of the same date, but in an earlier year. And I see what I was coping with then. Now,
Yeah.
that is a wonderful strategy that did help me release quite a few personal demons over the years where I went, wow, I moved beyond that. And at the time, it was so big. It was such a big demon. Whereas now it's just a fluffy little teddy bear. What are some of the advanced strategies that people can use with their morning journal that you recommend for your people?
Well, I like that. It's a reflection tool. So it is lovely to see where you've come from and what hurdles you overcame. And it does help you put into perspective any problems you've got today, because we all know that something we think is really big today probably isn't that big tomorrow. So that's a really important reflective piece. But I also see it as a way to collect inspiration. So I write words in that I might hear in a podcast. I might put a quote in that I've seen up on a wall somewhere or, in a shop somewhere. So I collect information in there as well. I don't just write about myself. So if I see a quote like, you get to do this, not you have to do this, that when I wrote in my journal, I get to do this. I don't have to do this. My life changed. All of a sudden, my to-do list was called my get-to-do list. I get to unstack the dishwasher. I get to coach people. I get to write a book. I get to be interviewed on, not I have to. And so it was only in writing it in the journal that I could see it all the time. And I wrote it many, many times, actually, because I wanted to evolve that into my personal being.
I love that. I love that a lot because you're reinforcing that lesson. And I think sometimes when we're journaling, it can help you understand what your true goals and values are because you see it in black and white. And that way, your actions will hopefully jump into alignment with those goals and with those values. I'd like to talk more about that. A lot of people are struggling at the moment to get specific about what their values are. We've got an environment out there that isn't positive, let's face it. We're facing news contagion, emotional contagion from those around us. We do have a situation where not everything is going according to plan for many, many households. So what advice would it be for your people, but also my people who want to get specific about their values?
Well, values are home base. It's coming back to home. And I think after COVID and after the roller coaster everybody's been on, everybody could do with a beautiful little reset. And when we do a reset or when we unpack ourselves and want to build a better version of ourselves, we always start with values. They are the lighthouse. They are the gateway to your emotional intelligence. They are your decision-making tool for the rest of your life. So you always start by asking yourself, what is the most important thing to me in the world today? And people go, oh, what is the most important thing in the whole world to me today? And usually it comes back to health and family. Some people say wealth creation, but when we say the most important, they'll go, oh, okay, it is my health and my family. And if it's health, then what are we doing consciously, intentionally to protect your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, and your spiritual health? So for me, that's the boss. That's my KPI every day is, did I move my body? Did I eat well? Did I hydrate? Did I do some great breath work today to keep my nervous system nice and calm and nice and confident? What are the things that I did today to invest in mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health? Did I say my affirmations this morning? Did I write in my journal? That's investing into self-care. And that's to avoid burnout. And it always keeps us on track so that when we have to make a decision, it's that in alignment with my values. So it's very easy to have boundaries and to start saying no if you're very clear on your top 3 values. So for me, it's health, family, and achievement. If I'm not achieving every day, I'm miserable. And that doesn't mean making more sales or coaching more people or, we just sold 65,000 units of my vision board kit over summer. That's actually not the achievement. The achievement is, did you meditate every single day, make your bed every day, move your body every day, and do mindful breath every day? That to me is the achievement for longevity and high performance. All the other stuff we just do. We've got our to-do list that we get to do, but the investment into self around your values really is who you're reporting into, I feel.
And you mentioned to-do list. I have actually rephrased my to-do list to be a ta-da list.
So mine's the joy list. I call mine the joy list.
Oh,
So
wow. We really are aligned.
Yes, mine says joy list / I get to do. And so I put everything under that. And so I have to approach everything that I'm doing with joy and lightness. And in lockdown, that was very difficult because coaching a lot of people who were really suffering, doing Zooms with 600 people on them, teaching them how to breathe because they were just really hurting, and to calm their nervous system down. For me, it was approach it with lightness and joy. Otherwise, I'm going to be exhausted myself. So I actually really have made that a way of living for myself. I'm going to approach everything with lightness and joy. And the stress relief is unbelievable when you do that. You really realize what's important and not to sweat the small stuff.
One of the aspects of that I think can relate to traders is I was talking to Tom Barso the other day, who's a market wizard, and Tom was saying that he likes to think of every trade as being a single data point amongst 1,000 data points. So it's just one tiny aspect. It's not going to make or break you in terms of whether you can see whether you're a trader or whether you're going to be a failure in inverted commas. It's going to just be one point on the continuum. I think that's a really key way to consider the experience you get from sometimes a negative situation as well. Personally, I've always learned from my trades that haven't gone well, as well as my trades that have gone well, but probably more from the failures than the actual successes. Have you found the same?
Absolutely. And it's about perspective. Right. At the end of the day, unless you're calling an ambulance, we shouldn't be firing off 25 stress responses a day. So if we can have perspective on the overall picture that we have to expect some losses in the mix, we can't just win everything. So when we have the expectation that there's going to be some losses, we can acknowledge them. Okay, that's part of the whole package that I've ticked off. I've had a few losses. That's actually normal. It's actually how we learn, how we grow. So we need to not stress about that too much, but actually see it as a learning opportunity. We don't want to make the same mistake twice, but let's learn from it. Let's grow from it. Let's see it as a gift in some way, because a lot of the times they are.
And your background, it's almost like you've come full circle with this conversation, isn't it? Your background, you initially started out at a broker's office, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I did start running around the stock exchange floor when it was down in Queen Street and Collins Street, running around delivering the tickets. Yes, absolutely. I watched Wall Street, the movie, when I was 18. I said, I'm going to go and be a stockbroker. So I was in the money market and all kinds of areas there.
So, Shanna, what about habits? Because I think habits are a great way to put a lot of our behavior onto autopilot. What would your advice be for people who want to generate solid habits around trading, but also the rest of their life?
Well, my first question is always, are your habits working for you? You know, a lot of people don't even ask themselves the question. Habits are those small decisions that you make every day. They're the small actions that you take every day. And they're automated. They become automated. So we're not thinking about them consciously. So unless we actually put the torch on them and shine a spotlight and say, is that working for you? Is having coffee at 5 p.m. working for you? Is it affecting your sleep? The way that you're viewing your trading or setting up your trading as a habit, even your mindset habit, is that working for you? So I think it's all about asking yourself great questions. And a lot of people don't know how to ask questions. They sit in the problem or sit in the stuck energy rather than going, actually, what am I doing that's causing that? You know, I brush my teeth after dinner. Otherwise, I eat on the couch. So the habit is do the dishes, go and brush your teeth. These are the small fine tunes that we can do. So for all the traders out there and all the people out there, what habit could you fine tune? We don't need big overhauls. We actually need to pop the bonnet all the time and just do little fine tune tweaks on how we eat, how we trade, how we record our trades. Is it working for you to the best of its ability? And you've got to ask yourself the question.
Another thing that I think has been fascinating in our conversations is I know you guard against complexity. I do as well. The data from the trading world shows that complexity works up to a certain point and then it tips over in terms of a trading plan. People's performance, it just means they can't trade the plan. It means that the algorithm is too long from a scanning perspective and you have contradictions and that you can't even see what those contradictions are. Complexity can sometimes really foul up a winning trading system and a winning trader. Tell me more about your views about complexity.
I just think humans aren't even wired to even cope with all of that anyway. And to make great decisions, the more complex we make things for ourselves, we actually go off path. We go off our original goal. So when we plot, we want to get from A to B, and we know how we're going to get there, and we keep adding in extras. I think we lose the joy, actually. I think we lose a lot of joy. I think everything becomes a little bit overwhelming. We create a bit of anxiety for ourselves. And the minute we do that, we stop breathing. The minute we stop breathing, we start holding our breath, we're not making great decisions. We can't see clearly. And we don't enjoy the journey. So for me, the whole thing that I work with high-performing people is actually about simplifying their life. What can you get rid of? What can you say no to? What can you add, change, or delete? You know, in your life, in the way that you trade, in your program, it's too much, it's too complicated, so it ends up being a sabotager. We say that with our strengths, that when we use our strengths, we need to use our strengths to 80% capacity. There's a shadow side, it's called, to every strength that we have, every character strength. When you're too kind, what happens? You know, people take advantage of you. If I'm too honest, which is one of my strengths, is honesty. If I'm too honest and I take it to the full extent, I could offend people. You know, so I need to soften the edges a little bit, but I'm a straight shooter. So we need to know what our strengths are and know what our program is. And the minute we make it complex for ourselves or we use it too much, it actually backfires, it turns around.
And I do know that's a topic that you cover in your book, The Life Plan. What else does that book cover?
The Life Plan is really an awesome book about who are you, where are you going, and how are you going to get there. And we know a lot of people have career plans and sporting plans, maybe a financial plan, but what about your life? What about you, the person? What about the whole lot under one umbrella? So the life plan is really about creating, who are you in 20 years? How do you want to feel? Where do you want to be financially? What life experiences do you want to have in that time so that you can make things happen for yourself rather than ending up 20 years down the track and you go, oh, I've missed a few opportunities. It's asking you to get in the driver's seat and create the life that you want rather than be reactionary.
That sounds like a perfect next step after this interview for everybody to look up your book, The Life Plan. What else should people do to stay in touch with you, Shannah?
Yes, I'm on Instagram, Shannah Kennedy, and there's a lot of free resources on my website at shannahkennedy.com. There's downloadable affirmations, there's downloadable free vision board kits as well. And I think it's really important, especially for traders, to know what their vision is. So there is a whole vision worksheet. There is the instructions on how to do a vision board for yourself. The reason that you're creating habits today or the reason that you're making decisions today should be taking you towards your own personal vision. So if you don't have your vision and you don't know your values, you're making decisions just for the sake of it.
Quite possibly, this is the missing link that a lot of people have sensed could have been addressed by them, but they didn't know what to do next. So Shannah, you've provided a beautiful way forward for us. Shannah, is there anything that you wish I had have asked, but I didn't ask?
Oh, I think a little bit maybe we could just end on burnout. I think that a lot of people over the last 2 or 3 years, and especially working from home and triple screening at home, I think that a lot of people are suffering grief and burnout, and we've never really experienced those emotions before. We're never taught the grief cycle. Sometimes we feel flat and we don't know why, or we're just not feeling ourselves. It's actually a moment of grief coming through our emotional state, and to get really in tune with the warning signs of burnout would be a really great thing for people to be aware of so that they can maybe ask for help or get some support. I think it's really important that people really guard their health at the moment.
Absolutely. Actually, so much so that on the 1st of March, which was our episode 397 on Talking Trading, we covered an entire episode on burnout. It is such a hot topic at the moment. People are really suffering out there because we do have external circumstances that are ganging up to impede our pure mindset. So go back in time and find that episode released on March 1st, episode 397 on Talking Trading. Shannah Kennedy from shannahkennedy.com. Thank you so much for your beautiful energy, spreading your light into the world. I know every time I talk with you, I just feel buoyed up. So I really appreciate everything that you've shared with us today.
Well, thank you. And thanks for having me, and best wishes to all the people listening. Take care of the asset, which is yourself. Embrace the pace to pace out your year. And remember that morning journal is really a very powerful tool to stay connected with self-awareness and self-leadership and self-management.
Such a good message. And if you're listening to the audio on talkingtrading.com.au, also join us for the video version, youtube.com/trading game. Until next week, happy trading.